Hi everyone, and welcome back to Elements of Art and our unit on space. I'm Caroline, and today's lesson reminds me of a poem by one Mr. Robert Frost. Two roads diverged in a yellow wood, and sorry I could not travel both, and be one traveler, long I stood, and looked down one as far as I could. So we learned about one-point perspective in our last lesson, and how it is a great way to show the distance of a single road or path. But what if you want to show the extension of space in more than one direction, or a point of convergence somewhere besides in the center of the page? In today's lesson, this will be our focus. We'll learn how to show space in two directions with two-point perspective. Visualize standing at the corner of an avenue where two streets meet. As you look down each street, you notice the buildings seem to shrink toward two separate points, to the left and the right, rather than the center. This view is captured using two-point perspective, which, in contrast to one-point perspective, with its singular focus, helps us draw the illusion of distance and scale with two vanishing points. So, how do you think two vanishing points will change the way you draw compared to one-point perspective? Both of these images clearly show two-point perspective in real-world settings. In what ways do they differ from these one-point perspective images, which illustrate the technique we learned in our last lesson? By looking closely, you'll see how the technique of two-point perspective adds a different sort of depth, creating a more dynamic representation of space. Before we go further, let's learn more about two-point perspective and how it helps us create lifelike drawings. This method mirrors how we naturally see the world and can make our artwork more dynamic and realistic. Two-point perspective involves two vanishing points placed on the horizon line. This technique is useful for drawing edges of buildings or objects that are angled toward the viewer, as it helps show how these objects look when viewed from a corner. Let's view an artwork that uses two-point perspective. How do the orthogonal lines created by the buildings and the street intersect with the human figures and other elements like lampposts and umbrellas? Try and follow the implied orthogonals with your eyes. Do you notice that the lines from the buildings and street guide our eyes to the vanishing points, almost directing us to look past some of the objects like the lamppost? What I find most interesting is where the horizon line falls. Do you see it? It lies almost directly on the eye line of the figures in the foreground. What challenges do you think Bote may have faced when using two-point perspective in this painting? I imagine that Bote had to do some precise planning and execution to make the scene look natural and realistic, accurately drawing lines converging to two vanishing points and placing figures and objects correctly within this perspective. Let's check out these two images. One is an exterior scene and the other is an interior scene. Pause the video and take a moment and find these images in your notes. Draw in the implied orthogonals and try to find the vanishing points and the horizon line. You may have found that identifying the vanishing points in two-point perspective within a cityscape is a bit easier than trying to locate them in an interior scene. Let's look at why. When you're standing on a street, the buildings and roads stretch out into the distance, making the vanishing points more obvious. You can easily see how the edges of buildings and roads seem to converge towards these points on the horizon line. The wide open space and the straight lines of the streets and buildings make it easier to understand where the vanishing points are. In contrast, When you're inside a room looking at the corner, the space is more confined and the lines aren't as long. The walls, floor, and ceiling all come together at sharp angles, and it's harder to see where they would meet if they kept going. The vanishing points are often actually outside the room, making it trickier to visualize them. Just like we did for beginning to learn one-point perspective, a simple box scenario will allow for some great practice using two vanishing points. Let's have Natasha lead us in a demo. Make sure you have a pencil and ruler.
First, let's start by drawing our horizon line. Remember that this straight line across your paper represents the eye line of the viewer, and the horizon is always horizontal. Next, we need to place two vanishing points on our horizon line. These points are where our perspective lines will converge. Let's start with the box above the horizon line. Let's place it slightly left. Draw a vertical line above your horizon line. This will be the front edge of our box. Now, from the top and bottom of this line, draw lines to both vanishing points. These lines will form the top and bottom edges of our box in perspective. Next, draw two vertical lines connecting the top and bottom perspective lines on both sides. These lines should be parallel to the first vertical line you drew. Now draw lines from the bottom of these new vertical lines to the opposite vanishing points to form the bottom edge of the box. Now you have a 3D box above the horizon line. Next, let's move on to the box below the horizon line. Again, draw a vertical line, but this time below your horizon line. Let's place it slightly right. This will be the front edge of our box. As before, draw lines from the top and bottom of this vertical line to both vanishing points. These lines will form the top and bottom edges of the box in perspective. Draw two vertical lines connecting the top and bottom perspective lines to create the sides of the box. Next, draw lines from the top of these new verticals to the opposite vanishing points to form the top of our box. Now you have a second 3D box below the horizon line. Let's finish off with the box on the horizon line. Draw a vertical line right across that horizon line in the middle of the page. This will be the front edge of our box. Now draw lines from the top and bottom of this vertical line to both vanishing points. This time, because the box is on the horizon line, you won't see the top or bottom of the box, only the sides. Draw two vertical lines on either side of your front edge of the box. These lines will end our sides of the box. Now you have 3 boxes in 2-point perspective.
Look at your drawings! You've just created boxes in 2-point perspective. You can see how the vanishing points help us make things look like they go into the distance, with the focus on the corner of the boxes. Isn't that cool? So let's recap what we've learned today. Using 2 vanishing points helps us create realistic depth in our drawings. You've all done an amazing job drawing 3 boxes in 2-point perspective. Keep practicing this technique with different shapes and objects to become even better. Great job, everyone. And remember, art is all around you.
Hey, hey.